Let's go!
You just witnessed history. This is the moment EU FNCS champion Vaniac set a world record by becoming the first player to win all 3 games in the solo finals. But this is easier than it looks. In this video, I'll not only be showing you how Vaniac broke the world record, but showing you how it's easier than ever for you to do the same. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it with his off spawn. Vaniac lands on top of Redline Rig, and instantly after he lands, he looks for damage on players flying in. This pressure is usually enough to intimidate his opponents into leaving early, and even if they don't, they're left in shambles to be cleaned up shortly after. The Machinist AI spawns in the main room of Redline Rig every game. So after he gets a few guns, Vaniac hits the AI with a couple shots and then ziplines up to the top of the POI. Since the AI is aggroed onto him, it will actually follow him up the zipline where he can kill it for free, granting himself the Machinist Combat Assault Rifle, as well as the medallion, which will be really important later in the video. But right now, he needs mats, and he doesn't get them the way you might think. Most players farm all their materials at their drop spot, but this puts them at risk because over time, more players will start to rotate into your drop spot, leaving you at risk of getting griefed and sent back to the lobby. Vaniac is able to avoid this by only farming enough materials to defend himself, and then leaving his POI to farm the much faster materials outside of it. For example, these bricks at Redline Rig only give about 25 on average. On the other hand, the bricks at this nearby pond give over 100 each. This method of efficient farming helps him save time and keeps him out of unnecessary fights in the early game. But in game 1, things didn't go so smoothly. After getting the medallion, Vaniac was hunted down by a couple players, which led to him not being able to farm metal. With not many options to refarm metal in this zone, Vaniac decides to look for a fight. First, he uses the Nitro Hoop. If you don't already know, this gives you 30 seconds of the Nitro effect, but he combines this with his Flowberry Fizz to go flying straight into the center of zone. This is something he does in every single game, and the positioning he gains from this often helps him later on. Once he lands, he uses the geysers nearby to continue his rotation and even uses some extra nitro he finds on the ground. This use of natural map mobility takes him from a highly congested area to one of the best spots on the map. In the first fight he tries to take, he's unable to gain any advantages on his opponent, and this leads to him getting hit really hard. For most players, this would be a devastating amount of damage, but since he has the Machinist Medallion, he's able to heal right back up to 175 HP while only using 1 medkit. This medallion starts granting you 5 shield per second, but the problem is this takes a few seconds to activate. But when you drop the medallion and pick it back up, this shield is given to you instantly, meaning Vaniac is able to instantly start regenning while he's popping his medkits. Since this fight doesn't work out, he uses the green water to dash away, and since he's still in a really good position, he's able to find a good bush in zone and wait for a player to rotate by that he can surprise. He's able to get a damage advantage on the first player that passes by, then immediately pops Nitro to close the distance. While doing this, he noticed the opponent's only connected by 1 wall and quickly chops him out, slowing down his healing process. From here, he builds up the high ground and quickly notices the opponent left the wall open. This means he could drop down and claims the piece control, which gets him 60 damage. This leaves the opponent really weak, and Vaniac is able to Nitro through the wall, then claim his wall and cone for an easy kill. As he's dropping onto this wall, he makes a really smart play by shooting it with his pump. This way, if the opponent makes an instant edit, they'll get hit, giving him an even bigger advantage in the fight. But if they don't edit, this leaves the wall less than 90 HP, meaning Vaniac can run straight through it with Nitro even after the nerf. After this kill, he uses the extra heals from the body to get up to max HP, and he uses the extra brick to make space just in case another player tries to push in. He actually sits here for the remainder of this zone, then uses the extra fizz from the body and the Nitro Hoop above him to get into the best position in the new zone. Once he gets there, he builds this super wide base and places ramps inside to ensure he can't get surprised by players with Nitro later in the game. Normally, this would be a big waste of materials, but since he has the medallion, he's able to refarm in the open because even if he gets hit, he'll be able to regen his HP anyways. The next zone pulls really close, so after a bit of scouting, Vaniac makes an early rotation, but he gets shot in his back. He notices the player that shot him starts to get sprayed, and this gives Vaniac a perfect opportunity to get some damage in of his own. He ends up being able to crack the player's shield, and since nobody's around, this gives him a perfect opportunity to pick up an easy refresh. But he gets shot in his back again. But as we know, he can drop and pick up his medallion to start regenning before he's fighting. From here, he simply nitros into the player's box, claims his wall, and gets an easy kill. Nitro's been heavily nerfed since his gameplay, but you can still do the same thing by spraying on approach. And of course, he uses the extra materials on the body to build yet another super wide base where he can't get nitroed. This is a pattern Vaniac follows every game. He only takes a fight if he has an advantage on his opponent, and after he finishes the fight, he makes sure he uses all the extra resources on the body to build a super wide base, making it impossible to fight him. And if he doesn't have an extra body, he'll build this 2x1 in metal, which is the best way to avoid Nitro players. But right now, it's about to get him a refresh. A player lands above him and instantly Vannyak goes for a chop. This chop is really easy to do. All you have to do is break the floor and cone and then do a top row edit just like this. This chop gives him a huge amount of damage, so he tries to nitro in the box and end things quickly, but his opponent manages to get out and die shortly after. Luckily, he was able to hit the player that got the elimination, and while he's full tarping towards the loot, he's able to get a wall that allows him to instantly end the fight. Since he wins all 3 games from height, let's take a look at how he's able to get it so consistently. In game 1, he makes an early nitro rotation, and he's able to build up to a high layer, fight off the contesting player, and take it for free. In game 2, he doesn't go for it until the final 1v1, and he's able to take it with a simple chop out. And lastly, in game 3, he chops out the high ground player and then combines his Flowberry Fizz with a nitro splash, and he uses this combination of speed and low gravity to easily build over the other player. Now that you've seen how he set this world record, let's look at what you can do to develop some of these skills. Applying early pressure off spawn is huge. Getting an advantage this early makes your opponents a lot less confident and a lot less likely to make a play on you. It's a really small tip, but this should help you win a lot more of your off spawn fights. Knowing what gives the best materials around your draw spot is something a lot of players don't have down. The easiest way to figure this out is honestly through trial and error. Try hitting different things in scrims and arena, and then make a map on Fortnite.gg of what actually gives you the best material. This should save you time to position yourself better in the mid game, and the easiest way to do that is by combining your Flowberry Fizz with the Nitro Hoops. This is something Vannyak does a lot. Every single game, this got him into a good position, helping him win the game. Fighting isn't too important when it comes to making money in finals, but if you are going to fight, make sure you have an advantage. One of the easiest ways Vannyak gets advantages is by chopping players. This allows him to do a lot of damage, and even if he doesn't get the kill, he can use his Nitro to easily clean up the fight. And if you want to avoid being cleaned up by Nitro, 2x1 metal box is the easiest way to do it. This uses about 100 metal, but it ensures you won't be caught off guard by any players using Nitro. And last but not least, the height take. The most important part of taking height is being confident. If you combine your Nitro Splash with your Flowberry Fizz, this makes you almost untrackable, which means when you go to take height, it'll be really hard for your opponent to do damage to you. Then all you have to do is prioritize getting high ground over fighting. And last but not least, if you want to go pro, make sure you subscribe to the channel and you click the video on screen.